Welcome to Alchemy Arts Radio. I'm Jordan Grace.
And I'm Crystal Weil. Imagine stepping into this dimly lit Victorian parlor.
Oh, I can picture it perfectly.
Right. The air is thick with the scent of old paper, maybe a hint of Earl Grey tea, some beeswax, and sitting right there on a velvet-draped table is a stack of vintage photographs.
Those thick, sepia-toned cabinet cards.
Exactly. But as you look closer, you realize these aren't just, portraits of stiff, unsmiling ancestors. You are actually looking at the Crowley-Waite Victorian Tarot.
Which is such a massive undertaking.
It really is. We're doing a deep dive today into this deck by Garin Horner, published by Heliographis Press, and it attempts the impossible. It forces the two most bitter rivals of occult history to share the exact same space.
It is a brilliant and honestly kind of terrifying collision of worlds. I mean, you are taking the structured, almost dogmatic rules of early 20th century mysticism.
And locking them in a room with absolute untamed esoteric rebellion.
Yes, and wrapping it all in this haunting, photorealistic Victorian aesthetic. It's so visceral.
It is. And, if you're listening to this and thinking, well, I don't know anything about alchemy or Victorian occultists, why should I care about this deck? Here's the secret. This isn't really about magic.
Not at all.
It's about how human beings use imagery to process trauma, order, chaos, and hope.
Precisely. By using the visual language of 19th century portrait photography, the deck takes these abstract, massive concepts about the human condition and anchors them to real faces.
Which demands that you look at history and yourself in a completely different way.
Right. It's incredibly grounding.
So let's start with that visual language, because we have to talk about these cabinet cards.
Oh, absolutely. The aesthetic choice is everything here.
For the uninitiated, cabinet cards were basically the social media of the late 19th century. Like, photography used to be this incredibly expensive, rare luxury.
Yeah, completely out of reach for most people.
But then these smaller, cardboard-mounted photos came along, and suddenly ordinary people could preserve a human presence. You would display them in a cabinet in your parlor.
They were a status symbol, sure, but they were also a defense against being forgotten. A cabinet card was a way to freeze time. And the creator of this deck has taken that specific, heavy sepia-toned look and applied it to all 78 cards of the tarot.
And the tactile experience sounds incredible. The reviewers, they talk about the smooth cardstock, the gorgeous gold and black designs on the backs.
The production value is definitely there.
If you are used to the bright yellows, blues, and reds of a traditional tarot deck, it's like looking through a smoky, magical mirror.
That's a great way to put it.
Does stripping away modern color make the symbols feel more profound somehow?
I completely understand that reaction. It's a critique a lot of modern readers share when they first see the deck. But the lack of color is actually a feature, not a bug.
Okay, how so?
Think of it like when your eyes have to adjust to a dark room, because you cannot rely on the easy, bright primary colors to instantly tell you how to feel.
Like blue for sadness or yellow for joy?
Exactly. Because those shortcuts are gone, your brain has to work overtime.
So it's forcing your cognitive pattern recognition software into overdrive.
You hit the nail on the head. You have to scan the textures, the micro expressions on the faces, the way the light catches a specific symbol in the background. In alchemy, and even in modern psychology, this is known as shadow work.
Oh, wow. So you don't find the truth in the obvious places.
Right. You don't find it in the brightest parts. You find it by examining the parts of yourself or the parts of an image that are concealed in the dark.
It's like an optical illusion that forces you to engage.
It really is. And there are subtle design choices that reward that engagement too. For instance, on those ornate gold and black card backs we mentioned, the design is actually slightly lighter on the top edge.
Wait, really? That is incredibly clever for a practitioner.
Isn't it?
Yeah, because if you are shuffling, you can feel or see if a card is inverted before you even flip it over.
Exactly. It shows that the creator isn't just making a static art piece. They understand the physical ritual of how a reader interacts with the deck.
Okay, but if we are talking about shadows, tension, and, forcing things into the light, we have to look at the name of this project, the Crowley-Waite Victorian Tarot.
Yes, the elephant in the room.
Putting Aleister Crowley and Arthur Edward Waite in the same title is like trying to force matter and antimatter into a single jar.
It is the ultimate historical provocation, honestly.
Yeah.
These two men were the absolute titans of Victorian-era English occultism, and they absolutely despised each other.
Break that down for us a bit. Why the intense rivalry?
Well, they both started out in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. If you aren't familiar, think of the Golden Dawn as like a late 1800s intellectual think tank for mystics.
A very eccentric think tank.
Highly eccentric. It was a secret society where the brightest minds of the era gathered to decode ancient Egyptian texts, study astrology, practice ceremonial rituals. But it was highly structured.
And Arthur Edward Waite loved structure. He was the scholar of the group.
Very much so. Waite was essentially the academic establishment. He was focused on Christian mysticism, deeply heavily into historical research, and he wanted to create a system that was accessible but strictly ordered.
He's the one who directed the creation of the famous 1909 deck, right? The one with the yellow background that most people instantly picture when they think of tarot.
That's the one. He was all about rules and tradition, but then you have Crowley.
And Crowley was absolute chaos.
It's pure chaos. He was brilliant, undoubtedly, but he was a massive provocateur. He founded his own spiritual philosophy called Thelema, which was entirely based on the individual will.
Right, do what thou wilt.
Exactly. He was involved in highly controversial sex magic rituals. He delighted in scandalizing Victorian society. And he eventually created the Thoth Tarot, which is this incredibly dense, complex deck.
So when you look at their systems, they are fundamentally at odds. Waite is basically saying, follow the rules, study the history, and you will find enlightenment.
Yes, very disciplined.
And Crowley is saying, break every single rule, exert your own will, and you will become a god.
Which is why casting them within this deck is such a stroke of genius. Waite is cast as card 4, the Emperor.
The ultimate symbol of structured power, discipline, and authority. The guy who writes the laws.
Perfect casting. In his photorealistic portrait, Waite is seated on this ornate throne. He looks stern, rigid, entirely in control.
Yeah.
And in this beautiful meta-narrative touch, he is holding his own Emperor card from his 1909 deck.
He's literally holding the rulebook he wrote. That is amazing.
It's so good. But then you flip to card 15, the Devil. And staring back at you is Aleister Crowley.
I got chills when I saw that card.
It is so fitting, isn't it? Crowley spent his entire life leaning into the persona of the great beast. He wanted to personify earthly temptation and the breaking of taboos.
He reveled in it.
He did. And in the card, he represents that raw, untamed desire. He's this half-man, half-beast figure, flanked by 2 of his real-life followers, his Scarlet Women, Jean Robert Foster and Lisa Hersig. And just like Waite, Crowley is holding his own creation, the Devil card from the Thoth deck.
This is where the deck stops being just a clever history lesson, for me at least, and becomes a profound psychological map.
How so?
It's arguing that we all have a Waite and a Crowley inside of us. We have a deep psychological need for order, rules, and safety, the Emperor. But we also have this primal, chaotic urge to break the rules, to experience earthly pleasure, to rebel the devil. You need both to have a complete human experience.
That is so beautifully said.
Yeah.
You cannot have the light of consciousness without the shadow of rebellion. By putting them in the same deck, it forces a reconciliation of those 2 extremes.
But, you know, if we are talking about reconciliation in history, we cannot skip over the woman who actually did the work for Waite.
Oh, we absolutely have to talk about her.
Because if you are wondering why we care about these old British guys, wait until you hear about Pamela Colman Smith.
Pixie.
Pixie, yes. For decades, the famous 1909 deck was known solely as the Rider-Waite deck. Rider was the publisher, Waite was the director. But Pamela Colman Smith is the artist who actually drew the cards.
She brought it all to life.
She translated all of Waite's dry, academic, occult theories into the iconic, emotional visual language that the entire world uses today. And for almost a century, she was basically treated as a hired hand and largely forgotten.
It is one of the great historical injustices of the art world, truly. Today, the tarot community rightfully calls it the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. But this Victorian tarot offers some real tangible justice for her.
It really does. She is cast as the Queen of Wands. And the image is just breathtaking. She is seated on a throne, she has these magnificent wings, and she looks entirely self-assured.
She's holding a wand tipped with a 6-pointed star, too. Just radiating creative energy.
It's like the deck is finally giving her the throne she always deserved. But it makes me wonder, how does grounding these archetypal roles, like the Emperor, the Devil, the Queen, in real historical figures change how a reader connects with the cards?
It fundamentally changes the interaction. Think about it. If the Queen of Wands just represents the abstract concept of creativity and courage, that can feel a bit hollow.
Sure, it's just an idea.
Right. But when you were looking at Pamela Colman Smith, a real flesh and blood woman who fought to express her artistic vision in a society that actively marginalized her side. The concept of courage becomes instantly relatable.
You aren't connecting with a myth, you are connecting with a person.
Exactly.
Which brings up a fascinating point about how this deck functions on a larger scale. If the whole point of tarot is personal reflection, how does a modern reader relate to these towering occult titans? Does the deck cast regular people, or at least figures we can understand on a more human level?
It absolutely does. The deck doesn't stop with Crowley and Waite. It maps real historical and mythical figures across the cards to embody what is known as the Fool's Journey.
The narrative arc of the Major Arcana.
Right. The 22 major cards represent a journey from innocent beginnings to ultimate enlightenment. To understand why casting real people is so effective here, we have to talk about Jungian archetypes.
Carl Jung.
Yes, the Swiss psychiatrist. He suggested that human beings share a collective unconscious.
Like a shared psychological operating system that all humans are born with.
That's a perfect analogy. Jung believed that across all cultures and all eras, we share the same foundational psychological blueprints. The mother, the hero, the trickster, the wise old man.
The archetype.
Exactly. When we see them, we instantly recognize them without needing them explained. The tarot is essentially a deck of these archetypal flashcards.
So by applying a photorealistic, specific human face to a universal archetype, you are creating a bridge between the conscious mind and that collective unconscious. Let's look at a concrete example of how this works. The Nine of Swords.
Oh, the card of anxiety, nightmares, grief, and absolute despair.
And the person they cast for this card? Edgar Allan Poe.
It is devastatingly accurate.
Think about the cognitive response here. If I pull a generic illustration of a man sitting up in bed crying, my brain interprets it intellectually, like, okay, this card means sadness.
That's just a symbol.
But when I pull a photorealistic cabinet card of Edgar Allan Poe, my brain instantly loads everything I know about his real, documented human misery. His grief over his wife, his paranoia, his battle with addiction, it bypasses intellectual interpretation and hits you right in the gut.
It triggers profound empathy. You are no longer looking at a symbol of anxiety. You are sitting in the dark room with a man who is consumed by it. It validates the reader's own pain by showing them that this suffering is a shared human experience.
But it's not all suffering, right? Let's look at how it handles triumphs. Card 8, Strength. I love this casting. They chose Ellen Chapman.
The 19th century Lion Queen. What an incredible figure.
Madame Pauline de Vere. She was a real Victorian-era lion tamer. The traditional strength card usually shows a serene woman gently closing a lion's jaws, which is, a nice metaphor.
It's a bit passive, maybe.
Yeah. But here, we have a photorealistic image of a woman who literally stepped into cages with apex predators.
And how is she taming the beast in the image? It's not with a whip, and it's not with brute physical force.
With absolute unbreakable calm.
That is the core psychological lesson of the Strength card. The lion represents our own untamed primal energies, our rage, our terror, our most destructive impulses.
Our inner beasts.
Right. Chapman reminds us that you cannot defeat your own inner demons by going to war with them. You tame them through emotional fortitude, compassion, and a serene presence.
And the deck reaches even further back into history, too. It's not just Victorians. The High Priestess, card 2, features Enheduanna.
The ancient Sumerian high priestess. What is remarkable about Enheduanna is that she is widely considered the earliest named author in human history.
Wait, really?
Yes. We actually have her poetry. In the card, she represents the guardian of hidden mysteries and deep subconscious intuition.
The imagery is stunning. She is wearing a crown with a crescent moon, seated on a throne that seems to radiate light against the surrounding darkness.
There's that duality again, light and shadow. She represents the fragile balance between the conscious mind that we use to navigate the world and the vast, dark, unconscious mind where our true motivations hide.
So we have Poe, Chapman, Enheduanna, Crowley, Waite. It is literally casting a historical documentary of the human soul. But it's not just a gallery of famous faces, is it? There's actual functional psychological machinery embedded in these images.
Oh, absolutely. The esoteric symbolism. The deck doesn't just show you who you are, it shows you how to change.
The alchemy of it all.
Right. In spiritual alchemy, the goal is always transmutation. You take the raw, sometimes painful base metals of human experience, and you put them through a process to turn them into spiritual gold.
Let's break down how that machinery works in the cards. Like card 10, the Wheel of Fortune.
The Wheel of Fortune is the ultimate reminder that change is the only constant. Cycles of rise and fall, life and death, luck and ruin. In this deck, It features Kabasiker, an ancient high priest of Anubis.
Anubis being the Egyptian god who guides souls through the transition of the underworld.
Exactly. And Kabasiker is standing in front of this massive perpetual motion wheel, displaying the letters R-O-T-A.
Which is a classic anagram used in Western mystery traditions, right?
Yes, it can be read as Rota, meaning the wheel, Karo, meaning the tarot, and Torah, referring to the law or doctrine.
So he is basically a teacher standing at the chalkboard.
That's a great way to look at it. He is reminding the reader that we are all subject to enigmatic cosmic forces. You will have highs and you will be crushed by lows. The wisdom is not in trying to stop the wheel from turning because you can't, but in recognizing the pattern.
And that perfectly sets up one of the most misunderstood concepts in tarot, which is card 12, the Hanged Man.
Oh, definitely misunderstood.
Usually people see a guy hang upside down by his ankle and think, oh no, punishment. But in this Victorian deck, we see a performer in suspension.
Which completely strips away the confusing medieval folklore and shows you the actual mechanism of the card. It is a highly realistic portrayal of an artist who has deliberately, consciously chosen to suspend themselves in the ropes.
It is a conscious choice to pause, to stop fighting gravity and surrender. They are forcing themselves to view the world from a radically reversed perspective.
It's brilliant.
From up there, I can see solutions and angles that the people standing right side up on the ground are completely blind to.
It completely redefines enlightenment. Enlightenment isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes it is about violently shifting your perspective until the answer reveals itself.
And when you finally get that answer, you arrive at card 17, the Star.
The Star is the aftermath of the storm. In the structure of the tarot, it comes right after the Tower, which is complete destruction and upheaval. The Star is the pure, quiet hope that follows.
The imagery here is breathtaking. We see the Lady of the Night. She is standing at the edge of a stream, and she is clothed by her gown, but also seemingly by the dome of the starry sky itself. The Milky Way is shining behind her.
It is the ultimate image of alchemical balance. She holds 2 luminous containers of water. From one, she pours water directly into the stream, which represents returning nourishment to the collective unconscious.
Wow.
And from the other, she pours water onto the solid land, nourishing the physical, conscious reality we live in every day.
And right above her is a massive 6-pointed star.
The hexagram. When Crowley and others built their systems, they leaned heavily into Kabbalistic symbolism.
Which, if you're not familiar, is essentially a mystical filing system. It maps every human experience, planet, and element onto a structural tree of life.
Exactly. And in that system and in alchemy, the 6-pointed star is the union of opposites.
Fire and water, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious, the emperor and the devil.
Yes. It means that the fracture in your psyche has healed. The warring factions inside you have finally integrated. When the star appears, it means the chaos is past, and you are left with absolute clarity and a direct connection to your higher purpose.
It is incredible how much psychological density is layered into a single sepia-toned image. I mean, we have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
Let's bring it all back together. We started by looking at these heavy, dark cabinet cards and realized that stripping away the modern, easy colors forces our brains to do the hard work of looking into the shadows.
And we explored the incredible historical tension of forcing Arthur Edward Waite's need for structured law to sit in the same box as Aleister Crowley's chaotic will, and realized that tension lives inside all of us.
We saw how grounding ancient, abstract Jungian archetypes into the real suffering faces of people like Edgar Allan Poe or Pamela Colman Smith builds a bridge of immediate human empathy.
At its core, both tarot and photography share the exact same goal.
Which is,
there were mechanisms for capturing a single fleeting moment in time. The camera shutter clicks or the cards are laid out on the table, and for one split second, a profound truth that is usually hidden by the constant distracting motion of our everyday lives is frozen and revealed. It gives you a rare chance to look at yourself from the outside.
That is a beautiful way to frame it. As we wrap up this exploration, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over. Think about the fundamental relationship between light and consciousness.
Oh, I love this.
A photograph, especially those vintage Victorian cabinet cards we've been exploring, cannot exist with light alone. It requires profound darkness, the literal shadow of the darkroom, for the chemicals to react and develop into a clear image. If art, history, and tarot are just mirrors for our own psychological transformation, what shadows in your own life are secretly working right now to bring your brightest picture into focus?